are recording. Hi, y'all. We're so excited to have you here and want to welcome you to Coding for Beginners from Flatiron School. Build your own murder mystery game with HTML and CSS. We're super excited about tonight. My name is Corey Mickelson. I am the marketing events coordinator here with Flatiron School. A big part of my job is hosting free introductory workshops like tonight's event to give you all an opportunity to meet some of our instructors and get more of a feel of what the Flatiron School experience is all about. I also host a series called Tech in 20, where we take 20 minutes to discuss hot topics within the tech industry. Quick reminder, we're going to be using that chat button as our main source of communication tonight. So any questions or anything you have, go ahead and shoot them in there and we'll be answering as they come up. And you want to take that little blue button at the bottom from host and panelists to everyone so we can all chat together. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our host for the evening, Chris Erlinson. He is one of our lead software engineering instructors. Go ahead and take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Corey. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? Put your emoji of choice, how you're feeling right now, in the chat. I'd like to know, like, are you sad? Are you happy? Are you excited? Relieved? What's going on there? A couple happy faces, some swoons, some introspective monocles, rock and roll. We got the whole gauntlet. Someone signed in as a cat. Someone's wearing sunglasses in the evening. Love it. All right. So I am your lead instructor. Well, not your lead instructor, but I'll be your lead instructor for this evening. I am a lead instructor at Flatiron School. Just give me 1 second and I will bring up the slides. Okay. So we are going to kick off our intro to coding workshop. Build your own murder mystery game in HTML and CSS. And if there's time, maybe even a little bit of JavaScript, but one step at a time. So again, hello, everybody, for everybody who's still coming on in. I know we've got some people dialing in, filtering in from the waiting room. My name is Chris Erlinson. I am a lead instructor at Flatiron School. I would say if you had to define my life in 3 words, it would be tech and theater. Hence the theme of tonight's Intro to Coding workshop. So I majored in computer science. I worked in industry for about 6 years. I started at Rent the Runway. I worked for 2 years as a front-end developer, and then the next 2 years as a backend developer, and then the last 2 years as in DevOps. However, funnily enough, I also do a lot of stage directing. I also do event producing. My first job, actually, and this is the question I'll put out in the chat. What I'm interested in, what your guys' weirdest and or first job ever was. What the strangest job you've ever had, or what your first job was. Flight attendant, private investigator, picking up dog poop. You got to start. Yeah. First job was in a charter school. Was it education? An egg carton factory. Wow. My first job was also my strangest. I was an improv actor at a murder mystery dinner theater company. It's called the Dinner Detective. It was in Southern California. Basically, you had to blend in with the audience, and you were teamed up with about 5 other actors, and you would have to do certain skits or like plant certain clues, and then there was the big reveal of, you know, who was the murderer, and you give the audience a chance to guess who the suspect was. This was, I think, at the Ontario Hotel, Southern California, Los Angeles, if anybody's familiar. I know we got a few we have a few California people dialing in. Cool. Okay, some interesting jobs out here in tonight's chat. I love it. Okay, so our agenda is going to be, we're going to be talking about HTML and CSS, and we're going to be talking about what makes a website. We're going to have a live demo. We're going to be using the Replit repo that Corey has put inside the chat, and she'll be, if you haven't seen it or you just happen to miss it, she'll be reposting it throughout this evening. And the very end, we'll do a quick Q&A if there's time, but don't be afraid to pop questions in the chat at any given time, and Corey will have a closer eye on it. So please interrupt me, Corey, if there are any questions that come up throughout this. So we're going to kick off with a very brief intro to HTML and CSS. HTML and CSS are acronyms. They are short for hypertext markup language and cascading style sheets, respectively. HTML, hypertext markup language. That, if we break that word down, so I'm going to bring out my handy dandy pen here. I'm going to see if it works, and it does. Cool. Hypertext is not a word to be intimidated by. If anyone's heard, it just means over or beyond. It's not just plain text, it's hypertext. It does more than what plain text does. You'll see it a million times in sci-fi, hyperspeed, hyperwarp drive, whatever. It's just a word they add. It's just text that does something beyond just, plain reading text. Markup language in particular is it's actually very old. Like, you'll hear it a lot in tech, but it's actually a very old tool. They used it in the printing press. They used it with, old surfaces and tablets and the evolution of writing. If you have a document and you want to send your document off to the printing press to have it printed in mass distribution, you want to make a lot of copies of it. You got to tell the printer, like the actual person, what you want the title to be. What's the chapter going to be? What are the table of contents, right? And you got to be able to demarcate. You got to be able to mark up the different elements of your book, of your document, of your newspaper, what have you. So cascading style sheets, that comes from, we're going to see an example of a style sheet later, but basically you have a lot of rules of how you want your website to look, and they cascade down. That's it. So nothing too fancy. It's a cascading style sheet is a sheet that has a bunch of styling rules, and they all cascade down. They all kind of end up becoming one very long sheet, right? Oh, good question. How does HTML differ from XML? HTML is used in the skeleton or the visual representation of your website. XML can be used in other situations. It can be used for certain kinds of requests or responses. You can use it to compact or compress data and send it somewhere. It can be used in situations outside of the web. Okay, cool. So the three terms you'll most commonly hear with web development is HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. What's HTML and CSS one more time? What are they? What do they stand for? Yeah, there we go. Good job, chat. That's what I'm talking about. Hypertext markup language and cascading style sheets. So if we had to think about what roles these three different tools play, HTML is the skeleton of your website. As we just discussed. It is it's where you place your foundation on which you apply other things. It's on which you apply other kinds of aspects of your website. JavaScript you can think of as the muscle of your website. It allows you to move. It allows things to be dynamic. It allows things to be interactive, right? CSS you can think of as the skin, as the outer layer of your entire website. You can think of it as like the skin and the clothing of your website. It goes on the outside. It determines how you appear, how things are dressed. Okay, so we're going to talk about the basic ingredients of HTML. For those of you at home being like, what does this have to do with murder mystery? We're going to get there. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay down our workbench. We're going to lay down all these different tools, all these different devices we have to make a web page appear the way we want it to appear. So we just discussed things like HTML and JavaScript and CSS. They're going to allow us to do things to render a web page that allows us to make a game, basically. We're learning the basic ingredients of what is essentially a game. So the anatomy of an HTML tag, this is going to be your bread and butter for things appearing on the website, right? So this is your bread and butter. So in the middle, we have just some regular content. My cat is very grumpy. Just a normal sentence. But on the outside, what do we see here and here? Chat, talk to me about what you see here. Not looking for profound insights, just what you see. Yeah, we see what are called tags, right? This whole thing is called a tag. Yeah, what are these little, what is it? If we break that down even further, yeah, one has, that's a good notice there. One of them has a slash and the other doesn't. What do these seem to be made out of specifically? There's like 3 characters here. So how do we break that down? What are these 3 characters going on? Yeah, exactly. We have a left arrow, caret, slashes, and letters. Yeah, other names for the greater than, less than sign. You know. So these we want to put into our brain to recognize, because this is going to be the bread and butter of your website. This all together, this opening and closing tag with stuff inside of it, is going to be our element. So when I say element or an HTML element, that is what I am referring to. So what is an element comprised of, chat? Talk to me about what an element is made up of. Exactly. Exactly. Opening and closing tags and content inside of it. We're going to see some examples of HTML tags, and we're going to see what they look like in just a moment. So these are the most common types of HTML tags. It's not limited to this, but this is, one of the most common types of tags that we'll see, most common types of elements. Or I'll stick with tags for now. I'll try to keep my vocabulary simple and straightforward. So the first one is a heading. This is just, a big block of text. So H1 would be anything put inside of an H1 tag. Any words that you put in there what would happen? What would happen to the content that I put inside of these H1 tags? How would it appear on screen? Yeah, makes it look like a title or a heading, right? Big. It makes it look big. Exactly. Makes it look larger. It stands out. Exactly. And H1 is, in this case, the largest heading. And it gives it, if you change the number, it'll give a different visual effect. It'll give it a different size. This next one is a paragraph. Can anybody guess what, the difference would be between a paragraph tag and a heading tag? Which would be bigger or smaller? Yeah, right. Heading would be bigger. The paragraph would be smaller. And then these last few ones we're going to touch on very quickly. This one I'll focus a little bit more because it'll be an essential feature in our murder mystery game. This one does exactly what you expect it to do. It makes a button. So it makes a button. That's all. Nothing too complicated there. And this button, as you all know, is what makes up a game, right? Hard to have games without something that has a button that you can click on and allows you to do stuff. This one allows you to render an image. So this one right here allows you to show an image. This is not the end all be all of this. You can't just leave it at this. You have to include a source, an SRC. So you have to tell it what kind of image do you want to see. Exactly. And then the last tag is an anchor tag. And an anchor tag is a bit of the etymology of this is a bit vestigial. It comes from a previous generation. It doesn't make quite as much sense in the modern usage. So it is a little weird. Because right now, the way we use anchor tags is you click on an anchor tag and then it links you to another page, usually. That's not how it used to be used, which is why the name seems a little weird. Or maybe I've used the word vestigial differently. I always thought it was like this evolutionary thing, like it used to serve an evolutionary purpose. Now it doesn't. That's the idea. Anchor comes from when we used to have a web page. It was just one large web page. Typically, it was one large document, and you would scroll through it, and then you'd click on the respective anchor tag, and then it would bring you to where you need to go. So it would act as an anchor. We'll actually give an example of this right now. Let's get into it. Let's do some cool web development. Okay. The button, are there multiple styles to select? So this one needs to tell the button where to stop, right? And then you can have content inside of it. And then within, there's two ways to style a button. You can either style it from a CSS sheet, or you can start to modify it directly. There's different types of button as well. And we can go over that in a bit. So if we go to wikipedia.com, I'm going to give a very brief explanation of, I'm going to pick just a random article. And I'm also going to show something that is a little bit advanced, and I just want people to follow along. If you're following along at home, you can feel free to do the exact actions that I'm doing, and you can feel like an elite Packer typer if you want. But what I'm going to do is feel free to just sit back and watch, right? I don't want people to be like, whoa, the instructor's going off 100 miles an hour. So like, you know. I'm just doing something to show what anchor tags are like. So what I just did is I just opened up this thing called the inspector, and this is quite intimidating if it's the first time you're seeing it. There's a lot of complicated stuff here, but it's also your toolbox as a web developer. And there's a lot of tools going on here. So I'm going to actually exit out of this one more time. If you learn how to do this and you can kind of navigate it, you can impress your friends because it's quite cool indeed. So what I did was I had a web page up here for those following along at home. I right-clicked on it. I right-clicked on it. I went all the way down. I'm on Google Chrome browser, by the way. I went all the way down to inspect. I went all the way down to inspect. I clicked inspect, and up came this panel of tools that I can use. It's a lot of information. This is kind of an advanced tool, but it allows me to look. And what do we have here? What do you see here? I know it's a lot and you don't have to understand all of it, but like using the vocabulary that we've talked about, what do you see here? Tags, yes, yes. What kind of tags do you recognize that are familiar? Yeah, we see elements, exactly. Exactly. So we're going to talk about more about what these IDs and class are in a second. But if I, for example, look at midlife, and this is where the origin of the name anchor tag comes from, I can do something like this. So I can go here, and then I can put a pound sign. I took the ID, so I'm going to talk about what I just did one more time. I clicked on this. I double clicked where it said ID, because this is where I want to go to. This is my anchor. This is where, or this is how I'm going to re-anchor the web page in just a second. Probably butchering that usage a little bit, but you'll get the idea. So I went up to the website I was viewing. I put pound sign and then the ID I just copied. I pasted it. So what do you think will happen if I go to this website? What do you think will happen if I go to this with this pound sign? Any guesses about what will happen if I do this? If I go to that address. So midlife will here. Let's see if you guys are right. So this is where we took our ID. It's where we put that pound sign. I go into a new. I could have gone to the same tab. I didn't have to switch browser tab. And voila, it brings me right there. It brings me right to the midlife. So that was the function of anchor tags. If we go to this table of contents, for example, so what do you recognize here? What do you see here, chat? Yep. So the other part to mention, we got an anchor tag. So this is an element. It's got an href. Href stands for, I think it stands for hyperlink reference. Because it's not enough for something to be a link, it's got to be a hyperlink, right? This is 21st century, it's 2022, everything's fast and furious and all that, so it's a hyperlink reference. But href is just like, take me where I need to go, right? I'm not sure what that specific symbol means. Double equals $0. That's a good question though. But if I go here, it takes me to that section. So we were just looking at the early life. So this anchor tag anchored me or re-anchored me to the early life section. So that's where the etymology of that name comes from. Cool. All right, let's keep cruising along. Okay. So this is, oh yeah, you know what? Let's do a quick review, chat. So what did I do to do what I just did? We're all going to learn to be advanced. This is a bit of an advanced technique. And if you feel a little lost, that's okay. What I did was probably a little bit not usually covered in a beginner section, but just for fun. Yep, what did I do to get to this point? Yeah, I right-clicked. So I'm going to do this again in the chat for everybody coming in. I right-clicked. I inspected it. And then I just kind of looked around. Well, I looked for one of these things that looked like, you know, it would be something I would want to navigate to. So I clicked on the midlife. I don't know what you call it, like a header. Yeah, this is an H2. So this heading, this H2 heading, it's big. And then I double clicked on this and I got the midlife. Depending on your keyboard, F12 may work. Sure. Okay. How many people are coding along at home or following along at home? Well, cool. How many are here right now who are here, who have the inspector open? Okay, I'll do a quick bonus little thing. I don't want to take too much time here because we got a tight schedule to keep to, right? We got a murder mystery game to make. But if you want to see a cool console that you can mess around with, you can get the inspector on any computer, right? You can do it on Windows, Mac, does not matter. As long as you have a browser, you can right click, it'll give you something. Sometimes it's called developer tools, sometimes it's called inspect, but you're here. This gives you what is called a JavaScript console. And in the JavaScript console, I can do all kinds of different things. I'm going to briefly touch on some of these things you can do just so that you can get hands on keyboard and do some cool stuff right away. You do not have to understand it or master it anytime soon. So I'm in this console. You'll see up here, there's all these tabs. We just looked at the elements tab. That's where we could look at all of our HTML what? Starts with an E. All of our elements, exactly. That's where we could look at all of our elements that make up this web page. And you might have already noticed that this correlates to what's going on over here. If you want to look at the anatomy of any page, Amazon, eBay, Facebook, what have you, you can right click on it, you can inspect it, and you'll see the anatomical makeup of it right there. To the right, typically to the right of your elements tab, you will see the console right here. So over here is the elements tab. Right here is the console, usually right next to it. Sometimes if you don't see it, you may have to, if you don't see it, that's okay. Sometimes it's hiding. Again, complicated tool, but if you use it, yay for you. If you don't, just chill and follow along, absorb the information. Everybody has different learning styles, right? Some people do better just by observing and just relaxing and letting the information seep in. Other people do better when they're actively engaged, whatever learning style works for you. So to the right, you'll see console, or you might see it in these double triangles over here. We're going to click on console. We're going to click on console, and we're just going to start typing stuff. So I did 1 + 1, and I got 2. How about that? What is 2 + 2, chat? 2 + 2 is 4, exactly. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to print something out to the screen. And then we'll actually put a bookmark on this topic later because I want to make sure we get to the good stuff. So what I'm typing right now, as you're typing, you'll see this autocomplete menu come up. Don't be intimidated by it. It's, it's there to try to help you, but it is kind of visually, it's a lot. So it could be like, whoa, what is happening in my computer? So don't be scared by the little autocomplete menu that shows up underneath as you're typing. I'm going to print out something to the screen. It's not going to be anything too fancy, but you can do a console dot log. Do a console dot log, double quote, hello chat, and then you enter, and then it prints out the thing that you just typed in. You change the expect from white to black. I don't know. Probably some kind of visual configuration, if I had to guess. So I just clicked on the gear, and then I think it gave us some preferences. So probably somewhere in here might be your way to, there's like an appearance and a theme here. Do you want to check that out? Yeah. So one more time, what I did was I went to the console and I typed console.log. I said hello again. Yes, uncaught error, missing right parentheses after argument list. Okay, so this is, yeah. So we gotta do our typical industry standard hello world, of course. So in computer science, in web development, in software engineering, we are going to make errors. We are going to make a lot of mistakes, and it is so important and such a paradigm shift to understand that mistakes are learning opportunities. You're going to see errors, uncaught exception, null pointer reference error, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be in red text, and it's going to be scary and demoralizing. That is okay. Things are not going to work the way you intended them to do. Something's going to go off. And what's important is to just, instead of looking at an error and being like, oh my gosh, I'm a complete failure. You know, what am I going to do? I'm not good enough for anything. As a software engineer, you are relearning how to be a scientist and relearning how to rekindle that sense of wonder and fascination that you had as a kid. Kids are not afraid to make mistakes. As adults, we grow up and we're taught that mistakes are bad, that taking risks, taking failures is bad. So we want to be ready to, or be willing and excited, actually, and be curious about all the ways that we can make errors. So right now in the console, I'm going to purposely make errors. I'm going to see what's going wrong. So for example, I saw an error that came up in the chat and I typed this the wrong way. So I know the right way to do this. I'm actually going to copy paste this and I'm going to put it in the chat. Console.log. Left parentheses, double quote, hello chat, right closing parentheses. So what I do in my spare time as a software engineer, when I'm given this opportunity, I like to purposely put in the wrong thing. And I like to, if I want to understand how a pocket watch works, sometimes I'll pick it up. And I don't actually do this in real life, especially not with expensive pocket watches, but with a cheap pocket watch, right? They don't have any sentimental value attached to it. I pick it up and I throw it at the wall. I see how the parts, how it comes apart. I look at the gears, the nuts and bolts, and then that helps me understand how a pocket watch works. So sometimes I put in intentionally wrong code in order to better understand it. So it didn't like this. It gave me an invalid, unexpected token. Sometimes I'll do this, see if it gives me the same error. It gave me that kind of error. Oh, well, it's wanting the left parentheses, right? If I do this, right, it gives me undefined. You do not need the semicolon. You do not need the semicolon. Hello world. Okay, back to business. So, all right, we're going to zoom through these last few things because we want to make sure we get to our murder mystery game. These will be the last things we touch on. Looking at this, we are entering the world of CSS. What did CSS stand for one more time? I can't remember. It's been so long. Help me out, chat. Oh, that's another cool command. That's right, chat. You got it. You nailed it. Cascading style sheet. So, and what does, looking at this, what are your theories on what it does? And if you're feeling shy, you can always, say it out loud to yourself, or you can just, type it in private message, what have you. But looking at this, what are your theories, possible theories about what this does? Yeah. Changes the style, gives appearance. Yes. Adds color. Right. Right. It changes the presentation. Exactly. Changes the look, right? I also, at any point, welcome, not, if you're afraid of being right or wrong about a theory, what's important as a scientist, as a software engineer, as a web developer, is to make theories, and then see if they're right, see if they're wrong. If they're wrong, adapt the theories, find out what you don't know. Now you know it, now you're smarter, and you move forward. So yes, the header, as you might have guessed, this is a heading tag. It's changing the color. So we have this styling property, color, double that colon, and then the color that we want. And in this case, you do need a semicolon, right? And as we pointed out, we have a paragraph tag here. We have the color, right? It's going to make all the paragraph tags black. And it's also going to change the size in this case for the header, for the heading. I always mix those two up, header and heading. They are different. Okay. So yes, the semicolon indicates the end of that particular rule. So you need a semicolon to say like, hey, I'm done with this styling rule. The next thing that comes after it will be the next styling rule. So we're going to talk about classes and IDs, right? There's three things to remember. Well, there's two things to remember about classes. Classes, the classes and IDs, they're ways to target specific HTML elements. So classes will target a subset of elements. It'll target a specific group of elements, all the elements that have that class. And you can tell if something is a class name or not if it starts with this dot, right? So for example, if I have a bunch of elements that have the class dot my-custom headers, then if you go back, if I added another styling rule and I did dot my custom, what did I say? Headers. Whoops, forgot how to spell. It's okay. Happens to the best of us. Headers, open curly bracket. So one other thing is I pay very close attention when we were looking at the anatomy of these things to the exact character I'm using. So for example, I know that this is a what? What is this? Yeah. It's a heading tag. Exactly. So this is a tag. This is an open curly bracket, and this is a closed curly bracket, as opposed to a square curly bracket or parentheses. No. In CSS, we want an open curly bracket. And then I'll make the color gold. Right. So what will this do? What will this do? Yeah. Yeah, we know it's going to change certain things to gold, right? Yeah. Anything with this particular class, it will change to gold. Very good. Only things with the .my custom headers class. Okay. And we'll see an example of this in just a second. So in this case, I have a class. So I have a CSS in my CSS, right? This is CSS. This is a CSS file. Maybe it'll be like style.css. Here, we have a rule that changes the background color of anything with the class highlight to yellow. So one more time, this is CSS. It's got there's some kind of syntax that tells me that this is a class. What is that syntax? One more time. We just went over it. It's the dot. Exactly. It's the period, right? So it starts with a period, and then it's going to change anything with the class highlight to yellow. Now we want to pay close attention to this. We want to pay close attention to that because we mentioned anything that has the class whatever is going to have this styling rule applied. So the way this is actually done practically is in your, pay attention to this, HTML element. In this HTML element, we specify the class. So you have the word class with an equal sign and then highlight. What other element in here has the class highlight? Right, exactly. The paragraph element, the P tag. And here you can see the visual effect that it had. The other type of the other kind of technique we have to target elements is IDs. So let's say you don't want to target like a group, you just want one. You just want one element, a single unique element to be targeted. You're going to use IDs, and they are going to start with this. What is this? What is that symbol called? Call it a hashtag or a pound. Yeah, the pound sign. Those of you who are familiar with old-fashioned phones, you know what that's all about. So for example, something that starts with a pound sign or hashtag, tic-tac-toe, what have you, is going to be an ID. So what is an example in real life? We're gonna do something I like to call Eli 5. Explain like I'm 5. Explain like I'm a 5-year-old. Eli 5. Explain like I'm a 5-year-old toddler. What's an ID? What's an example of something that targets like, or that I uniquely identifies like particular things? Like, is there an example in real life? Yeah, real life examples of things that are like unique to each thing. Yeah, phone numbers. Phone numbers are kind of have this way of this single unique targeting, right? A fingerprint, right? SSN. Yeah, cars. Oh, a VIN, a vehicle identification number. Exactly. Yeah, names. Also, ways of uniquely identifying people. IP address. Yeah, get a little fancy. We're not at that. We talk about IP addresses in the next workshop. So this is an example of a ID in practice. So talk to me about what you see here. What do you see being done here? We just saw an example with class. We know all the vocabulary, or we're getting familiar with all the vocabulary that we need to be able to talk about this. What's happening here? What do you see happening here? Yeah. Yeah, we see things turning yellow, right? Which things are turning yellow? Exactly. The one with the paragraph tag, which has the ID of 1 right there. So if we look here, the 1 is prefixed with the £, our little tic-tac-toe symbol. And it says, hey, anybody who has, like, whoever has this ID, make its background colored yellow. That's all that's saying. And this, I actually don't think that H1 is necessary, but it says H1 heading, which gives it, I guess, a little bit more readability. Like, it clarifies like what it's going to be on. But you would only need £, heading usually, but it's going to change its color to purple. And that's exactly what it does. So this, see this, go here, change it to purple. Okay. Okay, briefly, I'm going to go back into REPL. Now we're going to start coding. So if at some point, what's the difference? What is the difference between a class and an ID? That's a great question. Someone in the chat want to take an attempt at that. What are the differences between classes and IDs? When you write that code, it has to follow smoothly. Yeah. Yeah. Other ways of saying it. Yeah. Classes start with a dot. IDs start with a £. Classes are multiple. They're subsets of your elements. So they're groups of elements. ID is single. There can only be one. Social Security number is probably the closest metaphor I can think of to IDs. They're unique identifiers. Exactly. ID is this guy. Class is all these guys. All these groups of guys. Yeah. Good review of that. Okay. Q&A. Any other questions that you have? Feel free to shoot them in the chat while I fire up this particular website. No, it won't. You can use classes for everything, but then you'll just have to be careful. So it won't break your web page necessarily. It'll just cause weird behavior. Like, it'll cause behavior that you may not intend. If you try and target, like in JavaScript, if you're writing code and it says, hey, target the element that has this ID and then make it animated. If you have multiple elements with that ID, your JavaScript will either return a collection of elements, which is not what you want, or it might animate multiple things. And this can cause error. It may not cause your web page to break, but it may cause unexpected behavior, or may cause like silent, weird behavior or errors. What was I going to say? Can we just use classes over IDs? You can. There's a bit of a semantic meaning to using classes versus IDs. If you say, hey, if you define in your CSS, like I'll see if I can do it here, for example. If we trying to find a good example, let me take all this out. So if we say, for example, all of the, I'm just going to say my custom group, for example, you're communicating to you're communicating with your other developers, the other people who are looking at this, like, hey, this is a class. This rule, this styling rule is meant to be used on multiple elements, right? It's not going to just be one gold. Like technically as a developer, you can just make a class and then only apply that class to like one thing in your HTML, but that semantically, that's not helpful. It's not really how it's intended. And then the same thing with IDs. It's like, you want to stick to how it's intended to be used, so that you don't have unexpected behavior, and two, that it's very clear that, hey, this is going to be unique, or there's probably going to be multiple of these things. Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way of articulating it, Ryan. It works, but it's not right. Yeah. Okay, so chat. There's been a murder. Everyone gasped. There's been a murder in Murder Town. It looks like we'll have to start defining. We'll have to start defining like what this murder is together, and then get to the bottom of it, right? We want to make our murder mystery game. So everyone open up REPL if you, well, not everyone. Open up your REPL, and if you are coding along, if you are just relaxing, if you're just chillaxing, it's all good. Just sit back, enjoy your cup of tea, popcorn, and watch. If you want to code along, this is the time to open your REPL it. You will, if you haven't already, you would, yes, you'll want to fork it, exactly. So you should see something like this. You may have to sign up for an account. As people are doing that, I'm just going to talk about high level what's going on here. So take a moment. Corey, if you can drop the REPL it URL in the chat, and we'll give a couple minutes just for people to go through the flow if they need to. You'll probably need to make a REPL it account, and then you'll need to fork it. No, you shouldn't have to create a Git repo. You should just be able to like make an account and then be able to fork it, and then it's all there for you. You don't have to download anything fancy. Don't pay anybody anything. You know, this is all free. So here, we're going to talk about a little bit more about what is made up of the web page, and then we're going to get straight into the murder mystery, right? You can kind of see from here, from the vestigials of what I have, how this is all going to apply, right? So as you're getting set up, I'll just talk about this briefly. You're going to see a couple of things here. So actually start fresh here, and I'll just start copy pasting things. Typically in an HTML file, this is where we start. Oh, great question. So when you fork it, forking it means you're going to make your own copy of it. So you have your own little sandbox. So you're basically taking my code and you're forking it. You're making your own copy to have your own little sandbox, your own little playground to mess around with it. Exactly, Letitia. It allows you to make changes without affecting the original. Don't be scared to just mess around with it. You won't be able to affect my version. You'd have to be authenticated as me to be able to do that. So you're fine. As soon as you're able to open this up, you'll be able to play around with it. This is the basic structure of an HTML web page. You'll usually see this exclamation point doc type HTML. It's basically just a way of telling your browser, hey, this is going to be HTML, just letting you know. This HTML is going to start off with an HTML tag. We've heard that word before. It's going to start off with an HTML tag. And then there's going to be typically two main parts, right? It's going to be two main parts. The first part is going to be the head, and the bottom part is going to be the body. Corey, if at any point we need to pause and allow people to get set up, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep babbling. Yeah, let me actually see if I can do this. I'm going to go to incognito tab. So I'm going to pretend to be a brand new person. So I'm going to be here. It should show you something like this. Exactly. No indentation does not matter, not to the computer, but it matters to me who's reading it, and it matters to you who's going to be reading it and writing it. So it does not matter to the browser, but it does matter for readability. Please indent your code and make it readable, but it won't break anything or set anything on fire if you do not have your indentation perfect. Yeah, exactly. Like a fork in the road, it makes two, so it makes your own multiple copy. You should be able to, so you should see a little blue button here, fork REPL, and then it'll ask you to create an account with REPL. No way around this. If you need to use a fake email account, fine. But I use my Flatiron account with this. This is a pretty popular educational product. And then afterwards, after you fork this, you should see something like this. So after you've clicked fork REPL, and you get here, you should see an editor like this show up. If at any point you're stuck, that's fine. You know, we'll have a few minutes after, and we'll also send this recording out. And it's coding along and making your own version is not going to be as important as just absorbing the information. So, you know, if you want to just chill and watch, that's also fine. Yep, cool. You're going to see two parts, the head and the body. So the head, what is the difference between the head and the body? If I told you conceptually, getting away from code, for example, if I told you like, hey, chat, philosophical question here at the library, you know, we're all about philosophy. What's the difference between the mind and the body, the head and the body? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of articulating that. The mind does the body, or the mind does the planning and the body execute. That's actually pretty much, yeah. Brains and the doer, the brains and the muscle, right? So up here in the head, we have information about the page. We might have things about, you know, what screens, what kind of behavior it should have under certain kinds of screen sizes. It might have links to other resources we need. We might have other metadata, right? So this is where all of our metadata goes in the head. And in the body, we actually have all of our content. So if we do this, voila, we have a header tag, or we have a heading, H1 heading tag for the chat, and we have a paragraph tag right there. I click run at the top, and this re-renders my web page right here. Okay, cool. So now I copy pasted a lot. If you're lost at any point, that's okay. Just feel free to copy paste what the remaining solution will be, which is what we'll have at the end of this workshop. And you can play around and tinker it then, right? And I encourage you to get your hands messy. I encourage you to make mistakes, like intentionally, like we did before. Oh, I wonder what'll happen if I take away that character right there. Oh, I wonder what happens if I take away the head. Being an evil scientist. That's what we're all about here at Flatiron Schools, learning to be scientists. Maybe you're evil, maybe you're not, depending on your alignment. So in the body, we have all this content, H1 through H6. We have paragraph tags. What else do we have here, chat? What else do we have here? Got buttons. Cool. Yes, images, anchor tags. We see a button that says click me. We see links. We see a tag that we haven't seen before. I wonder what that does, right? So we're going to see, what do you, take a moment to just look at this, and what do you anticipate you will see? Just ignore this head for a moment. We haven't gotten there yet. But what do you anticipate? What do you anticipate this will look like? Take a moment. Based on what we've talked about. Probably, we haven't added, we didn't do any styling rules just yet, right? Yeah, we're gonna see various headings of various sizes. We're gonna see one paragraph. We're gonna see a button, and we're gonna see an image. We're going to see text in different sizes. We're going to see a button with a call to action. Exactly. So we're going to run this, and we see just that. We see headings of various sizes. This is the biggest one, it's H1, and this is the smallest one, H6. We see some random text in Latin that nobody understands. I don't know if anybody has ever translated Lorem Ipsum. I don't know if it actually means anything. If you do know that trivia fact, please bestow us with your knowledge. We see a button with a call to action. We click on it. I said I wasn't going to go over JavaScript until the very end, and I lied a little bit. We actually have a little bit of JavaScript right here. We have a button that has a little bit of JavaScript that says hello world. And that's where we go back to our metaphor of JavaScript being the muscles. JavaScript. Does anyone remember from that metaphor what HTML and CSS do? We had that picture with 3 figures. JavaScript was in the middle. It was the muscles. It was like the doing stuff. Yeah, HTML was the skeleton. We had CSS. Yeah, we had HTML was a skeleton as the bones, and CSS was the skin, the clothes, exactly. Yep, HTML is the bones, CSS as the skin. Cool. Okay, so we have all the ingredients we need to make an interactive murder mystery game. So we're gonna get right into it. Chat, and this is where, Corey, I'll call upon your creative writing skills. Let's write a murder mystery together. So let's say, oh no, there's been a murder. Gasp. We go into the crime scene. What do we see? And chat, feel free to chime in with your inputs on what we see at the murder scene. We're going to write this together. Bit of a creative writing exercise. Please keep it PG-13 for the children at home. But yeah. A crushed top hat.
A cigar still burning.
A cigar still burning. Great. You walk into the room and you see crushed. Okay.
We got broken windows now too. There are no wrong answers here, so don't be shy, everybody.
Okay.
There's a dog barking at my house. I'm sorry,
And
guys.
broken windows. A dog is barking outside. It's a chilly night. Okay. A broken pearl necklace lies on the floor.
Blood, but no body.
Ooh.
Like
There is
rags of blood, or are we talking
blood.
pools of blood? We gotta get a little more.
Say that again.
I was like drags of blood or pools of blood. How
Yeah, we get a little Dexter here. Like, what are we talking?
a
Talking
pool.
streets?
1 cup.
Be specific. A cup of blood. Oh God. All right. There are pools of blood. We're gonna keep it PG-13, but you see 2 half-drunk. Okay, 2 half-drunk glasses of alcohol. Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna add a little bit of interactivity here. So down here we have an anchor tag. What does an anchor tag do? Somebody remind me in the chat one more time. What does an anchor tag do? This right here. Yeah. Yeah, takes us somewhere else. Takes us to a specific spot. Right. So we're doing this as a creative exercise, so we're gonna go with the flow here. We're gonna rename this to let's say that like we stumble upon the victim, right? Let's say that we stumble upon them into victim's room, right? So we follow the victims, we follow the the blood to another room. We're going to rename this victim's room. If I go here, okay, so we have some text already here. What do you think we're going to see when we render this? Just take a moment. What do you think we're going to see if we were to view this HTML page? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We're going to see some kind of heading, and we're going to see some kind of image. We're going to see an image that's sized in a certain way. We're going to discover what that is in just a second. Oops, let me rerun this. Look at the victim's body. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh. It's the body of the victim. All right. What do we see here? Stumbling upon the victim. Now we're back in creative writing mode. You
Someone face down.
They are lying face down. Is that what you said?
Yes.
What else do we see? In blood. Right.
Their hand looks like it's grasping for something.
Their hand looks like it's grasping for something. there is a wound in their side. I put a chalk. You imagine it's a dead body. I don't want to scar anybody with an image of a corpse for this coding workshop. So just pretend the chalk outline is a real person. There's a wound in their side.
One note can be seen with a combination. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. Okay, cool. Great. Great, you guys. So let's go back to HTML. And then side note, if we go through here, go to here, and we go back, there's a link here, takes us back to the crime scene. So this takes us back to the original place. And this is in itself all the ingredients you need to make a complex murder mystery game, all right here. You have ways to format text. You have a button that has different kinds of interactivity. We'll play with that in just a bit. And you have anchor tags that perform as this, like those when you were a kid, those choose your own adventure books, those choose your own adventure story games, where you're reading along and it says, hey, if you choose this, go here. If you choose that, go over here. If you decide to follow the bicyclist, go to page 14. If you decide to go home, turn to page 61. And then you open the book, voila, you go to page 61 or whatever, and then it brings you to a new page, right? So let's modify this a little bit. Clean this up. And let's question some suspects right here. So let's interrogate suspect. Say number 1.
His
So
arch
what?
nemesis, the Hamburglar.
Wait, what is it? The Hamburglar?
He said his arch nemesis, the Hamburglar.
Interrogate the Hamburglar. Okay, we're gonna interrogate the Hamburglar. What does the Hamburglar say when you talk to them? I like burgers. Great. I like burgers. This case is.
There's no way I did it. I was eating burgers.
There's no way I did it. I have an alibi. I was eating burgers with Ronald the whole time. This burger is to die for. That's not suspicious at all. We're going to run this web page. We're going to rerun this. Question suspects. Oh, looks like I got an error. Missing parentheses after argument list. Oh, you know why? There's not enough time today to go into it, but I think the quotes that I have are throwing this off. Ooh, hello. Let's rerun this. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay, cool. So you interrogate the Hamburglar. The Hamburglar says, I like burgers. There's no way I did it. I have an alibi. I was eating burgers with Ronald the whole time. This burger is to die for. Cool. Let's do one more just for funsies. And let's say, okay, let's do inspect the clues. Inspect the clues. We're gonna call this evidence. So we're gonna take this link. It's gonna take us to a web page where we inspect the clues. So what clues do we have? What clues do we have here?
Let's see. Were the clues that we already, oh, so the half drink glass of the 2 half drink glasses.
Okay.
Yeah, the cigar, the broken windows, the pools of blood.
Cup of blood. It's so weird. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple ways we can do this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep reusing this button. There's shorter, cleaner ways to do this, but just for the sake of instant gratification for everyone who dialed in today, we're just going to kind of keep this longer way of writing things out. So we're just going to create a bunch of buttons that say something when you click on them, right? So we have a button on click alert. So it's not going to be interrogating the Hamburglar. It's going to be something else. So our first clue is inspect the, I don't know, inspect the crushed top hat. Right. So what do we want it to say when what do we discover when we inspect the crushed top hat?
Half-eaten burger.
Half-eaten. There is a half-eaten burger inside. Okay, cool. Let's take this and let's actually copy it. Whoa, 3 more times. Make sure this indentation is okay. And then I will bring up our old. Okay, the next one we have a. Let me choose some of the interesting ones. Broken windows. So inspect the broken windows. And the pools of blood. Okay. Pools of blood. What happens when we inspect the broken windows, Corey and or the chat?
Purple fur. Oh, there we go.
there are remnants.
It's not looking good for you, Hamburglar.
Of purple fur on the window frame. Okay, great. Let's actually do one more. We'll make it 4. Someone wanted to do the pearl necklace. So what do we see when we inspect the pearl necklace? Corey and or the chat. Yellow feather.
Greasy fingerprints.
And greasy fingerprints. And greasy fingerprints. Okay. Ooh, the greasy, bloody fingerprints. Ooh. Okay. Last but not least, inspect the pools of blood. What do we see when we inspect the pools of blood?
Shoe print.
One of the pearls is missing. There is a shoe print. Cool. Blood is dried and not fresh. Crumbs from a ham.
It's not blood, it's ketchup.
Upon closer inspection, it's actually a cup of ketchup. When you say cup of blood or cup of ketchup, I'm imagining like a mug.
Yeah.
A ceramic. That's alarming either way. Okay, cool. Okay, and let's look at, let me do one more thing. SRC equals, I'm just going to include, so this image I want to include just to give this some visual pizzazz. So let's run this. So we're going to go here, inspect the clues. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do one more thing. Wonder if we'll have time to. So I'm doing a little bit of a shortcut here. You can affect the styling rules by doing this. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing style =, and then the styling rule I want. 100% just means it's 100% of your display. So 100% means it's just in between this window size. If the window grew larger, the image would expand to fit the window size. That's what 100% width means. So let me run this, inspect the clues. So now our image fits in the scene, in the window. If I inspect the crushed hat, what's going to happen? Chat? Exactly. An alert's going to pop up. It's going to tell us there's a half-eaten burger inside. If we inspect the broken windows, remnants of purple fur on the window frame. Oh my gosh. Inspect the pearl necklace. There's a yellow feather and greasy, bloody fingerprints. One of the pearls is missing. If I inspect the pools of blood, there's a shoe print. The blood is dried and not fresh. It's crumbs from a hamburger. Upon closer inspection, it's actually ketchup. Cool. Well, that, yes, it's a good question, Ricardin. There is an order here. If I move these around, for example, if I put this all the way at the end, so now I've put this button, the half-eaten burger, the crushed top hat. The crushed top hat is now the last button. So if I rerun this, I inspect the clues, you'll notice that the crushed top hat is now the fourth one instead of the first one. You have the alert last. Yeah. Well, I'm glad, Joseph.
And just so everyone knows, as we're getting closer to time, if you guys have to go, you're more than welcome to. We might be playing around here for a couple more minutes. Is that your plan, Chris?
Yeah, I'm around for a little bit longer. But yeah, at this point, Corey, I'll put a bookmark like with where this REPL is at right now. You can feel free to take it. What I usually do is we do things like build and burn. So we have a copy of a code base or something like that, or just, you can do this with any of your projects or any assignments that you have, and then you can delete or comment out code and then retype it yourself. So you can take all of this. And this is a great way to see if you understand what you're doing. Well, actually, what you can do is you can just take this whole thing and comment it out. The hotkeys I have are command/. So command/. And then what you can do is, from the best of your memory, you can put this in a different document, like just take this and put it into a notepad. So cut this out, put into a notepad for safekeeping. And then you can start from memory testing yourself, like, oh, do I actually remember what all the elements are? So I remember that, the first thing is an HTML tag, and then there's the body, and then I think there was a button, and then some stuff went in here, and then blah, 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 so on and so forth. And there was an image tag, or it actually just needs a closing tag, right? and there's an image, and there was a source, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, wait, I got lost at some point. I forgot a lot of things actually. So let me bring this back. Just seeing how I did. Oh, right. The button needs a type. I might actually not need this. It might default to type button, but there was an on-click that had this syntax. It was followed by an equal sign and then a double quote, and then had the word alert. And then I had 4 buttons, right? And then my image element was formatted like this. It had an src attribute, src equals my picture, yada, yada, yada. So that's called the build and burn. Darian, what's going on? Darian, raise your hand.
We do have a question. When I click integrate the Hamburglar, I can't find the syntax error.
Oh, when we click interrogate the Hamburglar, I can't find the syntax error. Okay, so we're here. Errors are how we learned. I love errors. Can you copy paste your error in the chat? Yes, please. Bookmarking this. You have all the ingredients to make your own murder mystery. You can flesh this out as much as you like. Play around with it. Can you copy paste the error that you have, Israel? Okay, right parentheses. Missing a right parentheses after argument list. So, oh, I think, so if we had another 3 hours, we talk about the art of debugging. But what I think we're missing is, I think you need, like, let me copy this. Let me see if I can recreate your error. That's a great way to test this, right? So I copy paste this, I put it here. Let's run. Wait, I just copy pasted the same thing. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, cool. So this should work. By which I mean it should not work. Aha, cool. I have the same error as you. Yeah. So we're missing an apostrophe right here. So this apostrophe right here is lonely. This single, oh, what is, oh, this thing turned off. My magic, oh, come on. Hang in there. Oh no, that's okay. Let me try something else. Aha, okay, cool. So this parenthesis, a single apostrophe right there is lonely. Apostrophes like to come in pairs. They need their significant other. So we need another apostrophe right here. So right there is where we need that other apostrophe. It should work. After this, we'll see if it does. So I run this. Alert is not defined. That's our next error. So the errors are teaching us. The errors are teaching us. Alert is not defined. So in this case, there's some things in computer science and web development are case sensitive. Others are not. So, for example, alert functions, and we didn't have time to talk about this in depth. So if that word doesn't mean anything to you, that's fair. We did not define it yet. In this case, what's called a function was not defined. it doesn't exist. Uppercase alert does not exist. Lowercase alert does. That is a function that does exist in JavaScript. So a function, for those who are who haven't come across it yet, a function is just basically, you can think of it as a machine that does things. You can think of it as, now I use a couple of metaphors, like a spell in Harry Potter. So when you say Wingardium Leviosa, that is a spell, that is a function. You can think of it as a function. It is something that does something. When you invoke a function, it's the same as invoking a spell. So right here, we invoked a function. We said alert, and then left parentheses, and then some stuff inside of it. What I did here is defining the function, which means I'm initializing it. I'm describing it for the first time. But a function is just like, the name of the function and then parentheses afterwards. That invokes it and that casts your spell, Wingardium Leviosa. That would be it. That's a whole other section we don't have time for today.
You have any more questions?
My victim's room won't show up, Stephanie. Tolu, thanks for stopping by. Stephanie, oh, I just lost it in the chat. Talk to me. You're not seeing.
My victim's room won't show up.
Can you send me your replit? Maybe I can look. A link to your. Yeah. Maybe good. Or you can DM it or whatever. Yeah, great. Perfect. Have a good night. Oh, wow. There's 50 of you. All right. Please hold. Do, 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 do. Let's try it again. Oh, I'm here. Okay, cool. Bum, bum, bum. Your victim's room won't open. So I'm looking at this. This looks right. I wish I could expand this. I want to check the name of it and make sure this extension is right. I run this. Look at the victims. Oh, okay. Show files. Let's go back here. Okay. Oh, okay. So we need an extra right here. We need to close this. So an image, actually, that's a really good point. We went over so much material that I think some of it fell through the cracks. But images are self-closing. They don't need a partner closing tags. Paragraph tags, heading tags, they all have an opening tag and a closing tag. Images are just self-contained because they don't have content inside of them. They're really just like the image is here and that's it. Heading tags, paragraph tags, it's like this is where the paragraph starts, this is where the paragraph ends. Yeah. Exactly. So to fix this, I think you should just need a what's called a forward slash and then a right arrow, what's called like a less than arrow sign. And there we go. Now that should fix it. Yep, exactly.
Do we have any more questions? Looks like that's all, folks. Thank you, Chris, and everybody else that came in tonight. If you have any questions, I dropped the links in a little bit earlier. This will be on our YouTube page. We will be sending it out by video within the next 3 business days, along with the Replit link and the deck that was used for this for the presentation. Have a good night. Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks you all. Have a good night.